goes on to tell me that when he in the last couple of weeks, he's woken up and he's started every day with prayer. And this is someone that just got saved. He was like a flat-out unbeliever a couple of weeks ago. Actually, as the story goes, shows up to Christ Temple by accident. There are two people with his name in the program, and they grabbed him and brought him to the church thinking it was the other one. And so he's here by accident, and God radically saves him. Isn't that cool? So he goes on to say that, and I'm paraphrasing. He goes on to tell me that there's a particular day where he's out walking to the Sheetz, the gas station, and he's walking, and there's a person in the, kind of in the shadows, and they're using outside, and the person invites him over. Hey, you want some of this, man? And he's like, no, I don't want any of that. I'm good. Well, he keeps going, and he sees another one. It's a woman. Hey, you want to use some of this? No, I'm good. And as he's like fighting off temptation, he's reminded in the parking lot of Sheetz, he's reminded, I forgot to pray this morning. And I said, well, what did you do? And he said, well, in the Sheetz parking lot. I hit my knees like this, and I just began to intercede for like 5 minutes. Now, I know a lot of church people. Oh, I'm going to say it. I know a lot of church people that would walk by him and say, that guy's a lunatic. Because you're too dignified to give God glory unless those double doors are shut. And you're in here where there's 400 other people doing it. But I'm talking about a man who just met Jesus, who forsook his idols at the altar, who's literally walking and temptations hitting him on his road, and the Holy Spirit ministers and says, hey, why don't you go to prayer and cover yourself under the shadow of my wing? And he drops to his knees in the parking lot of a Sheetz and starts praying to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I know a lot of Christians that are too dignified to do that. They're too churchy to do that. But I'm telling you, you can put on the best show you want. These people see right through your hypocrisy. I met men today that have better hearts than half of the church. I'm serious. I've met men today that are more postured towards Jesus than people who stand on stages and sing. It's true. And you won't understand why they act that way until you know what they've been through. They begin to explain things to me about the spirit. They start talking to me about the demonic. Now, I want to tell you that this is a very, very real world. I don't know if you think that addiction is only associated with substance. Can I just tell you that there is a very, in case you didn't get it from what I said in January and how I repeated it just now, in case you didn't hear me, there is a real, nasty, heavy demon over this addiction thing. It is not just substances coming from this, here, there, and everywhere. There is a demonic opposition against our state and our region for addiction and our nation. It's more real than half of the church. And he begins to tell me about seeing these demons. He says, and we're just talking about, and I have nothing to say. At some point, Ralph was like, well, I'm raspy. Ralph goes, well, you got anything you want to tell them? And I said, no one loves my impersonations in this house more than Ralph does. I impersonated Ralph last night to Ralph in front of some people, and they said, well, that's not accurate. And Ralph turned to look at me, yeah, it is. So he looks at me and he says, is there anything you want to say to him? And just to be honest, now listen, I've known Jesus for 10 years, and I know church lingo, and I know spiritual things, and I might have a lot of knowledge. I had nothing to say to these men. I was stupid. I just wanted to hear. Listen, they taught me today. They changed my life today. Hearing the things that they are walking through, and how that when they sit and pray on their bed, they feel demonic presences trying to hit them in the head and do things to them. And this I think this is so cool. Are y'all here? I think this is so cool. And please understand, I am talking about the addicted community, but this is so much bigger than just addiction. There's a whole harvest field full of people of all kinds that don't know Jesus. And so I'm using them as an example because I got to spend my time with them today. And so just please hear me from that aspect. But he goes, I love this. Now, there's zero church lingo involved in this. And he goes, when I pray, I feel this bubble around me. I just feel this bubble. And he said, and I can feel demons trying to hit my bubble. Remember? He said, I feel demons trying to hit my bubble. And they hit me here. And he said, but they can't break through. Little does he know. No, hang on. No, I'm just going to. Oh, little does he know that in the 91st Psalm, that little bubble is called the shadow of his wing. Now, somebody shout about that. Jesus said you would be protected under the shadow of my wing. He says, he calls it a bubble. He just hasn't read it, but the Lord is covering him under the shadow of his wing. It's awesome. I was so enlightened today, and you think Jesus doesn't minister to them. But goodness and you're the only person I haven't developed an impersonation for. But in a later season, I'll be back. I'll be back, and my impersonation will be exceptional. Kayla, why are you shaking your head at me? Y'all still here? I'm listening to them talk about the demonic, and it's just interesting that half of the church doesn't even believe in demons. I'm just here to tell you that a Christian that doesn't believe in demons is probably sleeping with them. They probably are. And to a church that doesn't believe in the demonic, I would say that maybe the demonic doesn't look like addiction. Maybe the demonic looks like a man in a suit and tie. Maybe your demon's called Pharisee. Now, you say, Nick, how do these demons go hand in hand? Well, I'd like to tell you. I'm going to close here. Are you ready? And then my prayer tonight is just going to be for Holy Spirit to empower every person in this building with Holy Spirit baptism, so that you will go out into the harvest field and not hand out hot dogs, but be Jesus. Now, hand out hot dogs if you want to, but lay hands afterwards. They need more than a hot dog. I'm going to tell you why they go hand in hand, and then I'm going to tell you something that blew my mind to close this out. Y'all still here? Whew. I know. Wow. Pastor, they've been listening to you. Wow. We can have fun in church. Yeah. Y'all having fun? We're having a good time tonight. Oh, man. It's just such an overwhelming experience today to be with people that have no church lingo, but they really know this, like Jesus is really ministering to them. And it's troubling that a church who believes in Jesus has no insight into the realm of the Spirit to fight these things And because they know they don't know how to fight, they just put them in the outskirts of town. So here's what happens. You go minister to these people, and by minister you mean hand out hot dogs and take a selfie to show everyone you're doing it. And you go do that, and that's great. And then you see those people, say at Pullman Square, and you cross the street, or you run inside a building, or you don't associate with them because you know you have no oil. Here's what happens. You think they didn't notice it, but they do. Not only do they notice it, it cuts. I listened to this man share, and he just kept going and going and going. And all I heard was rejection, rejection, rejection from the church. Now here's what happens. You have someone that's in bondage. They go to someone who should help them because they claim to know Jesus. They get rejected. Well, they associate, hear me, they associate your actions with Jesus because you call yourself a Christian. What they then do is say, I want nothing to do with that. And then they go off into idolatry, and there's the prisons are exploding right now with an idol religion because COVID shut the prison ministries down. So there's idol religion exploding in the addiction community and in the prison community. And so all these people will not associate with church because of how the religious crowd rejected them. Somebody say religion. The spirit of religion rejects. When they feel, now this is not just addicts, this is everyone in bondage. This is everyone who doesn't talk like you, dress like you, look like you, wear their hair the same way as you. Anyone that doesn't know him, when they feel the rejection of religion, and the only community that accepts them is the community that's there to steal, kill, and destroy. And they go further into bondage. What I'm telling you is that religion will grab these people and thrust them into bondage.
Yep, that's right. That's right.
I'm telling you, religion takes these people and throws them into bondage just the same way that Jesus would have thrown them into the harvest field. Religion takes them and throws them into bondage. And because of this, religion and the addiction here are best friends. And they run together very, very, very tightly. Because you must understand the kingdom of darkness is very unified. You never see a principality fighting another principality. You never see a stronghold fighting a stronghold. You never see a demonic power fighting a demonic power. I never read, from Genesis to Revelation, I never read where a demon fought another demon. All I ever read about is churches fighting other churches. I see the Pentecostals fighting against the Baptists, and I see the Presbyterians fighting against the Methodists, and I see this denomination fighting against that one, and I see this evangelist fighting against this evangelist because he has a bigger crowd than this one, so you got to run your mouth about him, and I see this one fighting against this one. Stop the division. You understand that the enemy has great success because his house is unified. Even Jesus acknowledged the unity of the kingdom of darkness. He said, why would I be casting out demons with the power of another demon? Because the demonic kingdom is unified. Do you remember when Jesus cast out Legion? Legion was not just a word that meant a lot of demons. Legion was a Roman army term. It was a term for a cohort of soldiers, and every soldier had its own assignment, and they flowed in unison. They worked like a well-oiled machine. And I want you to know that the kingdom of darkness works like a well-oiled machine, and the church falls for it every single time because the enemy just plants seeds of division here and seeds of division here, and let's gossip a little bit here, and let's run your mouth a little bit here, and let's operate in rivalry and conceit here, and then there's so much division. You're supposed to be fighting a principality, but you're fighting each other. Wake up. And while you're fighting because they went from pews to chairs, while you're fighting because they changed the color of the carpet, while you're fighting because you didn't get to sing your favorite song, Morgan didn't put it on the playlist, while you're fighting because you didn't get your precious way, While you're fighting because you didn't get to lead, there are real demons ravaging your city, and they're ravaging your church, and they're using you as a puppet. Well, it got really, they don't want to clap right now. I hear a couple of them. Well, yeah. Wake up! What are we doing? You know how many overdoses happen in your community every day while you're fighting over the color of the carpet? I'm not just talking to you in here. There's lots of people watching online who are probably commenting nasty things right now. I can only imagine. While you're fighting over the songs and who's leading and who's doing this, and I didn't get to be under the spotlight, you got people dying and going to hell every day. You got overdoses happening over here. You got teenagers killing themselves over here. Why? Because the spirit of religion rejected them.